Hello and welcome to the summer workshop. My name is Dave Fehr, and in this InDesign session we're going to go over how to work with images. That includes placing, cropping, checking resolution, and using links and why they're important. So without any delay, let's get right to it. To get started with images in InDesign, we want to go over the different methods to place the images into your layout. And one method is to open up a folder, have that folder floating above your InDesign program, and you drag and drop. As soon as you do that, you can see that there's a thumbnail icon showing the image that you're about to place, and you click onto your layout, and it places that image directly onto that layout. That's one method of doing that. Another method, and the one that I would recommend and prefer, is the File Place method. So if you go to the File menu, go to Place, you find an image you want to use, hit Open, and then you see that thumbnail again on your cursor that you can choose. You can see which image is about to be placed on the page, and you can click and it will place that image. Now I placed it at a larger size because I didn't specify what size of box I wanted to use. So I'm going to click on Undo to this, edit Undo, and so the icon is still on my cursor. I still have a loaded icon as they call it, so the image is there. So now what I can do is I can click and drag to place the image at the size I want. So one way, if you click, it just places the entire photo at the full size. Here now we're actually clicking and dragging to create that box, as well as show the size that we're needing to place that image. The next option is if I were to get rid of the image from the box, you can see that the frame is still inside my layout. So you can see the X there showing where that frame is. So the other method is to click onto the frame that you want to place the image into, go into the File menu, go to Place, and do the same thing we did before. You click on the image that we want and hit Open. So it places that image inside that photo box. Now if I were to create another random box here beside it, or I should say just below it, then I'll go File Place again, choose a different photo this time. You can see now when I place the photo, I placed it at a large size, so you only see a portion of that photo inside that photo box. And so there's a couple of different methods we can use to adjust that, to crop it to where we want to see the majority of that photo there. One method is to use your different arrow keys. So here we have a top of the toolbar, you have a selection tool, and you have a direct selection tool. In this case, I want to click on the direct selection tool and click on it. And now you've noticed that there is a orange border showing where the actual image is in proportion to that frame. And so it's much, much larger than your frame, so it's not all going to fit into there. So one method you can do is you can go into the corners, so you've got the little anchor points, hold on your Shift key to make sure it resizes proportionally, and then just click and drag to reduce the size to try to fit it to that box. Now you might see that the photo box actually goes below the pasteboard or outside the area that you're viewing, and so that may not be as easy to scroll around and zoom in and zoom out. It could be somewhat difficult. So another method you can use is if you right click on the box, you'll get an option for fitting. If you go into fitting, you'll have two different options. One is to fill the frame proportionally. One is to fill the content proportionally. And so if you do the fill frame proportionally, what it will do is it will take that photo and it will fill the frame of that photo completely. So the entire photo box will have an image inside of it. The fit content means that we're going to take the image itself and we're going to shrink it down so that the entire image is showing inside the box. And so let's show you an example here. If I were to fill the frame proportionally, you can see that the frame is completely filled, but there's still some image area on the top and the bottom that you notice that is not inside that frame. And so not the entire image is showing at this point. So if I want to change that, I can right click on it again, go to fitting, and I can fit content proportionally. And what that'll do is that'll shrink the photo down even further to get the entire photo into that photo frame. But you'll notice that your photo frame now is too large and has gaps on each side. And so those are two different methods you can use to adjust your photos. Either way, what you can do is you can go back to the direct selection tool or the selection tool. You can click onto your frame and you can adjust and crop as you need to as well. So there's a couple of different methods how to place, how to crop, and how to resize your photos once you have them placed. There's also a third method to placing photos in InDesign, and that's choosing multiple photos to place at one time. So to do that, I'm going to flip over to a different sample spread that I have here. And so you'll see now as you have a number of different boxes, you have everything placed, everything ready to go. It's a template basically ready for photos to be placed inside of it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on to, or go to the File menu and go to Place once again. Now I'm going to choose several photos. And so I'm going to click on my control key on my keyboard, and I'm going to start selecting multiple photos to place in here. So you can see now I have 4 photos highlighted. I'm going to hit the open button there. Now you'll notice that I have a floating cursor again with the loaded icon. It shows the first image that you're about to place, but it also shows the number 4, telling me that there are 4 images there that need to be placed. And so what I'll do is I will basically click on the boxes where I want those photos to go. So the first one there now has been placed. You can see number 3 is the other photo here, so I can click that one on the main photo there on the main part of the page. And I have a few other ones here I want to place. So I'm going to put this one over here. And I have another one here. I'll place it also just in this box just below. And so you can do that by selecting as many photos as you like. I think there's up to 10 to 20 different photos you can select at one time, and you can start placing on your page all at one time and then continue to crop after you've done all the placing. So now what I want to do is I'm going to resize all the photos all at the same time. And so I'm going to go into my main photo here and I use my my selection tool, that black arrow. I'm going to click onto the photo box, hold down my shift key, and I'm going to select the other 4 images that are here. So I have all 4 images selected now. If I were to right click, go into my fitting, and fill those frames proportionally, it now resizes all those images all at one time. And now if I need to go in and do some fine tuning, I can use my direct selection tool. I can go into the image itself, and I can now fine tune that cropping how I want to. But this will give you a good starting point to have everything sized correctly in your layout. The next thing we want to go over is image resolution. So anytime you place a photo inside a layout, it's going to give you a resolution of the photo of how it was originally when the photo was taken or a photo was manipulated in Photoshop, and what it is after you've resized the photo. And so for example here, I'm just going to click on to my main image on the top of my page. Then I'm going to look for the info panel. And so if you can't find the info panel, you can go into window, and there's an option that shows info. It tells me here it's already on, already open. So I'm going to go into my bottom right of my screen, and I can see there is my info panel right there. So I'm just click and drag and move this up so we can see it a little better. As you can see now, I've selected this main photo here. It tells me the type of photo it is. It tells me the actual PPI, which is also DPI. It's just another term for using dots per inch or pixels per inch. Then there's an effective PPI, and it tells you what the color space is. And so in this case, it's a JPEG photo. It tells me that the actual PPI is 300. So this image from Photoshop or from wherever it was taken or wherever it was worked on is actually 300 dpi. That's the image resolution that it was set to. Now 300 dpi is the recommended resolution of any photos in your layout, so you want to try to hit that mark wherever you can. The next one here is the effective PPI. And so as we'll check here, we're going to go into our direct selection tool, click on the photo. And if you notice when I click on the photo, if you go right above to the percentages, we can see now it says 44.4 with the different percentages for how it's been sized. So it's reduced to about 44%. And so when you do that, you're taking the 300 pixels that the image started with, and now you're shrinking them into a smaller space, and now you're getting 674 pixels in that box. And so anything above 300 is extra. This really doesn't affect your layout at all. It doesn't make it any better. 300 is the target you want to hit. But when you do resize your photos, you will see that the effective PPI is the number you want to look at to try to hit that 300 minimum point. And so in this case, we're over 300 by quite a bit, so there's no issues with this image at all. So after I check that photo, I'm going to go over and check my other photos as well. So I'm going to click on this one just below here. I can see now that my actual resolution is 300. My effective is well over 2500, so that one is just perfectly fine. The extra resolution won't make a difference. Here, when I click on this image here, it shows me that it is 439 dpi, which is my effective. That's the one I'm concerned about, so I'm okay with that. So here I go over to this image here. Now, if you look at this one, it says your actual is 300 and the effective is 163. So in order to get this image to fit this box as it is, then we had to enlarge it to 184%, and that decreased the resolution of that photo down to 163. So this photo would not be good enough to be used in your layout. Now, there will be other situations where there's images that have a different actual to effective DPI proportion. So what we're going to do is we're going to place an image in the box on the side here. I'm going to go to my file place. I'm going to place one of these images here. Then again, I'm going to right click on and do my fitting that I did before. So here now I've filled the frame proportionally. This is an image that I've taken from an iPhone. And so I'm going to go over to my info panel and bring it over. And you'll notice that the actual PPI is 72. And so you're going to see a lot of those numbers for the actual API go up from 72 to 240 to different various sizes depending on the camera that you use. And so if you take an image right out of a camera, depending on the brand name of the camera, the actual resolution may not be 300. And in fact, I don't think there's any cameras that do 300 exactly. So you may have different resolutions like 72, 240, 180, depending on your camera brand. And so in this case, this came from an iPhone, and so the camera took the photo at 70 dpi, but it also took it at a very large size. And so if I were to click onto the image with my direct selection tool, I can look at the top and see that my percentage is 8.9%. So I had to reduce it down to 8.9% in order to fit that box. And so the resolution of the photo is 72, but it's also at a much larger size. So once you shrink it down and compress it to fit that frame size, you get an effective resolution of 806 dpi or ppi, and that is more than what we need for this layout. The last thing we're going to go over in this session are image links. Image links are very, very critical to InDesign and how images work with InDesign. And so whenever you place an image with InDesign, it's what it's going to do. It's going to create a link from that image that's on your computer or on your server, and it's going to link it to this document. And so all the images you see here on this particular layout are just low-res preview images of what the actual image is on your computer. And so these aren't the full resolution versions of them. They're just a placeholder to allow you to crop and shape and move and so that your content looks correct. And so to kind of demonstrate how links work and the different issues that can come up, we're going to open up a new layout. So I'm going to open up this layout called link information here. I'm going to double click on that. And the first thing we're going to get is we're going to get a little warning window that comes up. And the warning window is telling us that there's something wrong with some of the images in this document. And it says there's one that's missing and two that are modified. And so what we want to do is we want to correct that. We make sure that that is corrected before we try to submit this file to Friesens. Otherwise, we could have issues with resolution or images not appearing correctly. And so in this case, I don't want to go to the update modified links. I want to go into the don't update links, and I want to check them before I update them. So I'm going to click on that button there. So when I open this layout, you see a couple different things. In each top left of every image, you'll see a different icon. There's a link icon there or a chain icon there. There's exclamation marks, and there is a red question mark. And so this is telling me that there is something wrong with these images on this page. Well, at least not all of them, but there are some that have issues. And so we're going to go over to my links panel, which is on the top right-hand side of my screen here. If you don't see that links panel anywhere, you can go into the window menu, and you can go down to where it says links. When you click on that, it will pop that menu out or that panel out so you can actually see where it is. So I'm going to take this links panel here, I'm going to move it out. And you'll notice that all the images that are on this page are listed here in this list of links. And so there's one here on top that has the red question mark, two that have the exclamation mark, and one that has nothing. And so what you want to see is beside this image here, this 0941 image, there's no symbol. It's in a hover over top, it says OK. If I hover over top the other ones, it says modified, and the other one says missing. And so what we want to do is we want to correct this by relinking those photos. And so you can do it two different ways. One of them is you can double click on that little icon, or you can go down to the relink. So I'm going to click on this image here. I'm going to click on relink. I'm going to find this image. So what you'll notice now is the image that was placed in my document is 41216. The image that I actually have here that I want to use, the correct image is 4126, and it says new. And so what's happened in this case is someone's actually renamed the file from when it was first placed. So it was first placed as 41216, and then at some point the image was renamed with something else in that name. And so when you do that, it breaks the link between InDesign and this layout, and it can no longer find that image. And so you want to make sure you never relabel your images after they are placed in InDesign, or you're going to have to go into here and you're going to have to make sure you relink them back to the image. That way it doesn't lose them, and that way the resolution can be utilized in that image. If you were to create a PDF as it is, that image would be low resolution and it would print poor in your yearbook. And so I'm going to click on this image here, hit open. Now it relinks that image. You can see nothing really changes with that image on the bottom right left here, but now it's linked in my panel here. The next I'm going to go to is the first one here. It says modified. And so what I'm going to do is I want to find this image. And now if you have a bigger layout and lots of images, it may be difficult to find. So we're going to go over into the little icon here called Go To Link. And what it does is it centers that image on your page, and it shows you which one is the one that is modified. And so modified can mean basically that the image itself, after it's been placed in InDesign, has been opened up in a photo manipulation program of some sort, has been modified, and has been resaved. And so then the date of the image that was placed in InDesign is different than the date of the image currently. And so that's why you see this modified in there. And so this can be good and bad because sometimes you modify images only slightly and they're harder noticeable. Sometimes the change could be bigger. And so in this case, I'm going to go into my update link button, which is that little 2 arrows that are around circle there. Click on that. And so the image is relinked. Nothing really changed. There was a slight color change, so it might have been modified slightly. Maybe a color or something has been adjusted, and now you have the correct image that's placed in the layout. And so nothing else changed other than a slight color shift. So you want to make sure that you're checking those images regularly. Next one is this image I have here below. It's one of the caterpillar here. So I'm going to go to the go to link button to center it there. So it shows that it's modified. It shows that it has the symbol as the warning there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to update this link. And so when you take a closer look at this one, when I update it, you can see something changed. And so from the original image that was placed in the layout to the one that is linked to this one now, something was changed. In this case, the cropping was changed in Photoshop. And so it was open in Photoshop, the cropping was changed, and now when I modified it and updated it to this layout, you can see that the cropping of the photo inside the frame box is now changed because the cropping of the photo changed originally. And so it's very, very important that when you have these warnings, whether it's a missing or modified warning, that you go over your images very carefully, update them, and make sure that nothing changes when you do those updates. The last thing I want to touch on when it comes to images is what not to do with images. And so in some cases that if you have other programs, whether it's or maybe it's a website you're going to and you're finding images that you want to use, make sure first of all you have permission to use those photos. Secondly, if you copy and paste those photos into this program, it can cause a lot of problems. And so before we did the file place method to place the images from a computer or from a server, so it's actually got a file location and has a link to that image, which helps it with the resolution and also the printing later on. And so the other thing that could happen is maybe an image has been copy and pasted into a layout. And so for example, if I go into Google Images and I find an image that I like, I can right click on it and go to copy. And I'll go back to InDesign. And if I go right click paste, it pastes the image on my page and everything seems to look fine. Because I have image here, I can now change the size of it, I can modify it, I can crop it, just like if it was a regular image placed using the file place method. However, if you notice, if I click on this image here to highlight it, my links panel does not show that image here. When I click on the different images, it actually highlights the image that's there. But for this one, it does not. And so what it basically did is it placed a low resolution copy of that image into the layout. And so it does not have a proper resolution. It's going to print pixelated or low resolution because it was copied and pasted from another program, and InDesign does not have a link to an actual image on your computer. So if you are going to use images of internet, first and foremost is make sure you have permission to use that image. Secondly, once you have it, make sure you save it to your computer as a JPEG or as a file that you want to use.